Sauron has the Nazgûl, has tens of thousands of orcs, and he craves the absolute submission of all of Middle-earth. But right under his nose, hidden deep in the heart of Khazad-dûm, is one of the most terrifying creatures to ever exist. Durin's Bane. If Sauron is longing to wipe out the West, why didn't he send minions carrying a summons to Moria? The answer does not lie in his lack of military strength or sinisterness. The real mystery lies in a hidden battle of wits over ancient power, where a current Dark Lord must face a demon of the same caliber from ancient times, a creature carrying a chaotic darkness that Sauron will never, and could never, force to its knees. The first question is whether Sauron actually knew Durin's Bane was in Moria or not, and Tolkien never gives us a clear answer about this. We know what the Balrog is. It is a servant of Morgoth that survived the ruin of the First Age and hid deep beneath the misty mountains. Much later, the dwarves in Khazad-dûm dug too deep in search of Mithril and woke it. The result was catastrophic. Duran the Sixth was killed. Nah the First was killed, and the greatest dwarven kingdom in Middle-earth was abandoned. From that point onward, Khazad-dûm became Moria, the Black Pit. Therefore, everyone knows that something terrible happened here. The dwarves always remember Duran's Bane. Moria became a place of fear. The Orcs later overran its halls, and by the end of the Third Age, Sauron's influence had spread throughout much of the Dark World. So, there is a possibility that Sauron knew. He might have heard rumors. He might have known something ancient was sleeping there. He might have even known exactly what Duran's Bane was, but Tolkien never shows us that directly. There is no scene, letter, or record in which Sauron considers the Balrog and decides to leave it alone. So, we have to be honest. The simple answer might be that he did not know enough to act. But that does not end the question, because even if Sauron knew, using the Balrog would not be simple at all. The Balrog is not one of the Nazgûl. It is not an orc captain. It is not a creature bound to Sauron through the rings. It belongs to an older darkness, the world of Morgoth, of Angband, of the walls of the First Age. Sauron can command armies. He can command the orcs and the rings. But a Balrog is entirely something else. A Balrog is a fallen mare, a terror of fire and shadow, and one of the last surviving powers from Morgoth's ancient war. Therefore, even if Sauron knew Duran's Bane was there, the real question is whether he could control it or not. To understand the problem, we must remember what the Balrog actually was. Duran's Bane was not just a powerful monster living under the misty mountains. No, it was one of the Valakar, a fallen Maya, a demon of terror, and one of the ancient spirits that followed Malor into darkness. Tolkien describes the Balrog as among the dreadful Maiar that became servants of Morgoth. And yes, Sauron was also one of them. But he was the greatest of those named. That places Sauron and the Balrog in a very interesting position. Both originated from Morgoth's side. Both belong to the same ancient evil force. But that does not mean the Balrog belongs to Sauron. The Balrogs are Morgoth's terrors. They served him in the First Age, and one of the clearest examples of that loyalty comes after Morgoth and Angulant flee from Valinor. Angulant turns her back on him, wraps him in her webs, and Morgoth screams in fear and pain. Yes, one of the Valar was placed in this situation. Deep beneath the ruined halls of Angband, the Balrogs hear that scream and rise to save him, because they had been waiting for the return of their lord. That detail says quite a lot if you think about it. They do not rise for Sauron. They do not rise because some lieutenant orders them to. They rise because Morgoth himself calls. Therefore, if Duran's Bane is still alive in the Third Age, hiding under Moria, there is no reason to assume that it would simply accept Sauron as its master. Sauron is very powerful. Yes, He is certainly greater than the Balrog in many ways, but to a surviving Balrog from the elder days, he might not look like a rightful lord, but rather like another former servant of Morgoth, who has now proclaimed himself the Dark Lord. Up until the War of the Ring, Sauron's entire power structure relies on submission. The Nazgûl, they obey him. His Orcs, they fear him. His human allies serve him once again through fear, ambition, hatred, or even worship. His empire is built around his will. A Balrog does not fit neatly into that structure. It is too old, too powerful, too closely tied to Morgoth's own world, and perhaps too dangerous to be treated like another weapon in Mordor's armory. This is when the idea of recruiting the Balrog becomes somewhat misguided. Sauron can command the Orcs. He can control armies. He can subdue weaker wills. But with those like Durin's Bane, he would have to deal with an entity belonging to the same order of creations as himself. A corrupted admirer, ancient, terrifying, and unbound to him by any ring. At most, Sauron could hope for an alliance, and Sauron is not really interested in alliances between equals. He wants subjects. That is perhaps one of the biggest reasons why the Balrog would be far too dangerous a prospect. It is not merely a question of whether it could destroy Sauron's enemies or not. Almost certainly it could, if it were actually given the right task. The real question is what it will do after that. Because once something like that awakens, moves, and is free, it might not stop where Sauron wants it to stop. Sauron already has terror as a weapon. He has the Nazgûl, and they are the clearest example of that. They are his most powerful servants in the Third Age, kings and sorcerers of mankind, enslaved through the Nine Rings until they became extensions of his will. The fear they spread is very useful because it serves a purpose. They hunt the ring, they command the armies, they break the courage of enemies. They bring Sauron's presence to places where he himself cannot personally appear. They are truly terrifying, but they are also very obedient. This is exactly what Sauron wants. His wickedness is built around domination. He wants every will to be under his authority. Orcs, men, trolls, rings, fortresses, armies, even the rings themselves. All of these are part of a system designed to control Middle-earth through fear, order, and command. The Balrog is a very different kind of terror. Durin's Bane does not behave like a general in a chain of command. It does not build an empire. It does not gather allies openly. It does not seem to serve any broader strategy in the Third Age. It simply sleeps, sleeping under those mountains until the dwarves disturbed it, and then it just came out and destroyed an entire dwarven kingdom. After that, it stayed in Moria, a shadow, right at the center of the ruins of this place. So once again, that question continues to arise. Could he order it to attack Minster? Could he order it to march with the Orcs? Could he force it to stop when a city has already fallen? Could he even trust leaving it near his own forces? And that last question is perhaps one of the questions often overlooked in this idea. A Balrog could terrify the armies of the West, but it could also terrify Sauron's own servants. The Orcs fear the Nazgûl, but the Nazgûl are a part of Sauron's structure. Their fear reinforces his authority. A Balrog could shatter that structure. Even in Moria, when Durin's Bane appears, the Orcs themselves step back. They know something greater and more terrifying has entered the hall. This is not just another commander arriving. This is an ancient terror stepping out from the abyss, and Sauron is too smart to be able to ignore that. He does not need more destruction for his own sake. He needs destruction that obeys him. That is the difference. The Nazgûl are terrifying because they carry out Sauron's will. The Balrog is terrifying because it is in itself a great and dangerous will. For Sauron, it would be a very risky weapon. Useful for a moment, perhaps a disaster if it refuses to be ruled. And Sauron's entire vision for Middle-earth depends on a world where there is no powerful force outside his control. Now, even if Sauron could reach the Balrog, and even if the Balrog was willing to fight against his enemies, the next question we have to consider is whether Sauron actually needed it or not. Before the War of the Ring, Sauron believed he was winning. Gondor had been weakened. Rohan had been manipulated through Saruman. The Alvas were fading. The dwarves were divided and diminished. The north was vulnerable, and Mordor has armies large enough to threaten the west on multiple fronts. From Sauron's perspective, the war does not need an uncontrollable ancient demon. His strategy was already working. He has the numbers, he has spies, he has the Nazgûl, he has Mordor, he has allies in the southeast, he has Saruman weakening Rohan, and most importantly, above all of that, he believes the ring will eventually return to him or be used against him by someone arrogant enough to reveal themselves. Sauron's great mistake is not that he lacks military strength. His mistake is that he cannot imagine anyone trying to destroy the ring. So, in his mind, the war is not about finding yet another weapon, but rather about crushing the enemies before they can challenge him with his own thing. Bringing the Balrog into that situation could create more problems than advantages. A Balrog, of course, would be devastating on the battlefield, but it would also be almost impossible to manage neatly. It might not follow those orders. It might not respect Sauron's authority. It could cause panic within his own ranks, and if in the end it decides to remain independent, Sauron would simply be waking a rival power right in the middle of his own campaign. There might also be a pride element to all of this. At the end of the Third Age, Sauron does not present himself as one of the surviving servants of Morgoth, among others. He is the Dark Lord of Middle-earth. He wants worship, submission, absolute obedience. A Balrog probably would not look at him that way. It might remember Sauron as another servant of Malor. Powerful, yes. Cunning, yes. But not Malor, not Morgoth. And that distinction could play an important role. Sauron can tolerate servants, he can use slaves, he can manipulate allies and enemies when he wants. But a creature strong enough to stand outside his command would be nothing short of a major problem. So, even if a Balrog brings a short-term advantage, it might just turn out to be the wrong kind of advantage. Sauron does not need a wildfire devastating Middle-earth. He needs every fire to burn where he commands, and Durin's Bane is not that kind of fire. So, just like I mentioned at the beginning, the most honest answer is that we do not know for sure. Tolkien never provides us with that direct explanation. He never writes a scene where someone considers a Balrog. He never confirms that he decided not to, or that he wishes he had. That is just something we have to try and piece together ourselves. But I feel at least the facts are clear enough. Durin's Bane is a Balrog, a leftover terror from the ancient wars of Morgoth. It had hidden itself under the misty mountains. It destroyed Khazad-dûm when the dwarves woke it, and up to the time of the Lord of the Rings, it still haunted Moria as one of the most dangerous creatures left in Middle-earth. The possibility is exactly what makes this question so fascinating. If Sauron knew it was there, he might have left it alone, because the Balrog is not the type of servant he needs. Sauron wants submission. The Nazgûl they obey, his armies they obey, his captains, his spies, his servants, all exist inside a command system. The crucial difference regarding Durin's Bane is that originating from an older and more chaotic darkness, it is unlikely to follow this pattern. It might have helped him destroy enemies for a time, it might have shattered armies, burn down cities and spread panic across the west. But ultimately, Sauron would still have to deal with it afterwards. Could he command it? Could he restrain it? Could he make it kneel? None of that can be certain. Therefore, if he knew Durin's Bane was in Moria, leaving it there might simply be the most practical choice. Let it guard the mountains. Let it keep Moria. Let it continue to be a terror to dwarves, elves, and anyone passing through those halls. Because in that state, the Balrog is already useful. It destroyed Khazatu. It helped prevent a great dwarven kingdom from rising again. It made Moria become a place of fear. And it guarded the darkness of the misty mountains without risking bringing it into his own war machine. So perhaps the answer is not that Sauron forgot the Balrog. Maybe he simply had no reason to wake a disaster when it was already causing enough damage right where it was. Sauron might have wanted Morgoth's legacy. He might have claimed the title of Dark Lord. But that does not mean every surviving evil force from the Elder Days would submit to him. It is not just another chess piece on Sauron's board. It is a reminder that even in the Third Age, there are still ancient powers buried in Middle-earth that do not belong to anyone's plans. Not Gandalf's, not the Fellowship's, and perhaps not even Sauron's. And so, there we have it. Now, I would love to hear from all of you. Do you think Sauron knew Durin's Bane was in Moria? If he did, do you think he avoided the battle because he could not control it? Or because he simply did not need it? I would love to hear your thoughts, opinions, and theories on this in the comment section below. And as usual, I want to send a massive thank you to all my supporters on YouTube who keep the fire burning so this channel can continue to operate. Thank you all so much for patiently watching until the final seconds, and we will see each other next time on the Mythos Archive.